Welcome to this BettFest session. We're going to be looking at digital strategy. How do you scale it? How do you sustain it? How do you make digital at the heart of your institution thrive, grow, and develop? My name's Ty Goddard, and I'm absolutely delighted to start this BettFest session by introducing three of the EdTech Demonstrator colleagues that we've been working with on the EdTech Demonstrator program. Amy Hollier, welcome from the Heart of Worcester College. It's lovely to see you. Really glad you could join us. Bruce Wilson from United Learning, responsible for technology across a large multi-academy trust, and Sarah Morgan from Danesfield. It's lovely to see you, Sarah. Thanks for being with us. And the three of us have been, as have our other 50-odd colleagues, been on a journey of mentoring, supporting and advising schools throughout lockdown 1, 2, and now 3. So it's a hat trick of lockdowns. We've learned a lot about where people are in terms of their digital maturity, their attitudes to digital. And we thought what we'd try and do in this 20-odd minute session is try and capture some of the lessons that we've understood, some of the lessons we've learned during this difficult time, and help you and support you on your digital journey. Bruce, do you want to quickly kick off? What does digital strategy look like across a big trust? Different schools. You've also got schools in the independent sector, primary, secondary, independent sector. I mean, that is scale, isn't it? How do you get coherence and how do you get buy-in from schools in terms of digital?
Thanks, Ty. Thanks for having me. Killer of a question to kind of start with. Well, let me give a couple of reflections. So, that aim was very much at the heart of what we were about as United Learning before this sort of terrible crisis. How did we do it? Well, we've got considerable sort of resource at the centre to provide that kind of advice. I think the main strategy that was successful for us, this is prior to the lockdown, was absolutely linking what our schools were trying to achieve educationally with whatever that kind of strategy was. We do a lot of work on direct instruction, teach like a champion, Rose and Shine, all of those kind of principles, and those are at the heart of why our schools are successful outside of technology. So prior to COVID, I think the key point from us was, just absolutely making sure that whatever the digital strategy was, it was absolutely linked to what we were trying to achieve and, solving a proper kind of problem. We've had to pivot quite quickly in this last year. I should say, by the way, even at our scale, we operated a really non-top-down approach. It was a really consultative kind of approach and really worked with schools. That model has pivoted somewhat in the last year, I had to say, and we've been considerably more directive around what schools should be doing and can be doing in this last year, and that's been a real challenge. Most of that actually has been centered around providing a cloud environment that was suitably set up to do Rose and Shine remotely, as we call it, and in the safe sense. For us, that's Office 365 predominantly, but I know there are other cloud environments. So, trying to provide, I think, in essence, the very best pedagogical, technical, and safeguarding settings advice from the centre, and making sure we support schools in implementing that would be I think the key thing from the last year.
So you were very clear on, you talk about Rose and Shine remotely. I think that captures lots. You were very clear about your pedagogy that you wanted digital to support. Yeah,
I mean, if I reflect back a year and a half or so, all of our successful schools, whether they're in the independent sector or whether they're in the academy sector, have all been through the thought process, whatever their strategy is. And it does vary. We're 90 odd schools, so it does vary, and it should vary because contexts vary. But all of the successful projects have all been through the thinking process of it, and it sounds like rocket science, but in my experience, lots of schools miss it. They've been through the thinking process of what are we trying to do here, and how is this tech improving the educational process? And I think if you miss that point, it's highly likely that whatever tech that you throw at education, it may well fail. That would be the kind of the key point for us. It's been really interesting in the last year, where we've been through a process of really concerned about live lessons and then getting live lessons up and going, to a situation now where I would say our very best practitioners are not just saying, can we do live lessons, but how do we do great pedagogy over live lessons as well? And to achieve that in 9 months, I take my hats off to some of these teachers, but those are the boundaries that some of our very best people are kind of pushing, I think, and it's great to see. So
you've seen a real flywheel. You've seen a real speed of adoption capabilities.
Yeah, indeed. And I think whilst COVID's been terrible, that will be a nice output of all of this, because we've seen a rapid upskilling of people. We've seen a rapid cloud adoption. We've seen obviously devices being prevalent, connectivity, and so on. And in terms of the sustainability part of this topic, we're nowhere near the answer right now, but we're really keen to work on how do we surf the wave of all of that as we come out of this pandemic.
Thanks, Bruce. Thanks very much. Sarah, digital, I've heard you talk, and we've debated a number of times, woven into the very fabric of your school. How do you articulate your strategy, your approach to digital?
Well, I think our digital strategy has all been about, as you say, embedding it into kind of high quality teaching and learning, and looking at those creative opportunities that technology enables us to have. And when we were setting our digital strategy, we were looking at the outcomes that we were trying to achieve. What impact did we want this to have? And ultimately, we wanted it to have an impact on raising standards in all areas of the curriculum. And that's why we felt it was so important for it to be embedded and not just a bolt-on. I think the key thing for the success of that digital strategy was ensuring that there wasn't just one technology lead within that we actually had everybody within our team as technology experts, and we all worked collaboratively to support each other within our own professional development journey. And we very much approach that growth mindset along the way, as kind of Bruce has just said, to share successes, but also to share the failures. And I think ensuring that everybody is aware within your team of what your digital strategy is, what are you trying to achieve, and how will that impact on our children kind of going forward. And I think that has always been the driving force behind every decision that we've made.
And was it you as a leader arriving in Danesfield and saying, right, we're going digital now, that's it, I've had enough? Not that I'd imagine you'd ever talk like that stuff, obviously, but was it a leadership decision? How does a school culture arrive at this decision, this moment of we're going digital?
Well, we had recently set our school vision of what we wanted to achieve, and we wanted to be an inspiring school, not only for our children, but also for our teachers. So it came back to those professional development opportunities and looking at how we could grow as a staff. And I think that's where, when we kind of first embraced and thought, actually, the technology side of things is one of our weakest areas at that point. And we had staff who had all different kind of levels of confidence with it. So it was an area I wanted to prioritise. So we did set that as a priority for a term, all came together and did it that way. But it wasn't a case of, that was just a strand of how we could create inspiring opportunities. It wasn't kind of me alone.
And now, that journey, few years on, Microsoft Showcase School. We may have seen you in a global corporate advert. We also welcomed you to the EdTech Demonstrator. How has that experience been, sharing not just in your local area, but nationally, right across England, sharing your expertise. How's that felt for the school?
I think it's been an incredible opportunity for the school, but it's really reinforced how important it is having a learning culture and how we have to continually challenge ourselves to think differently, to evaluate every decision that we make and every opportunity. Even after kind of day 2 of running remote training, we will all sit down and think, right, what can we do differently? How can we improve? How can we learn? We are right at the beginning of our journey. We looked at schools across the UK to look at who we could learn from, and we always kind of have that model at the very heart of what we do. But I think it's inspired our staff to continue to have that love of learning, and it's made us feel that actually what you can achieve, like if you'd have told us a few years ago what we would have achieved with technology, we would have never believed it. Especially like if you go back to some of our teachers who wouldn't even turn on a computer, and now they're hosting teachers from Finland, like doing live demo lessons. So if you look at that journey, I think it's just inspiring to be able to have those opportunities to share and learn together as educators.
Oh, isn't that fantastic? Yeah, Finnish educators coming here rather than it being one-way traffic. Us going to the nirvana of Finnish education. I absolutely love that. And do you feel that where are we as a country in terms of embedding this change? You've had this perspective through Microsoft, through your work on the DFE's EdTech Demonstrator Programme. Where do you think we are? Are we now getting it because of the crisis, or are we just waiting for the crisis to be over?
I think this has kind of given us a springboard opportunity, really. We, at the beginning of this programme a year ago, we would have never envisaged having this many schools to the point that they are with technology. And I think we have got this opportunity now to support schools. They have all got their staff to a certain level of skill, and they've all done incredibly well. But what we've got to make sure is really important that we embrace that now moving forward, and looking at how we can embed that within everyday English and maths lessons, so that these skills that our teachers have learned are not then forgotten within a year's time, and we can kind of use those opportunities. So I think as we have come a long way, and the key thing for me is let's not waste this now going forward.
So you're a digital pragmatist, perhaps, rather than evangelist?
Yeah.
Or are you both? I don't know.
Maybe a bit of both.
No bad thing. Amy, welcome. Your perspective, I mean, it's a EdTech Demonstrator Schools and Colleges programme, and I think we've learned that perspective from FE, the breadth of experience of your learners and your teaching staff has brought such a richness to the programme. You've had a journey at Worcester. You're also responsible for taking forward the Blended Learning Consortium, which I think is a great model in FE, a collective model, cooperative. People fund and invest and get so much more back for their investment. How do you see digital now in your institution, looking back and also looking forward?
Thanks, Ty. It's really great to be here among you all. Yeah, we're really excited by, how we've moved forward with digital. We started doing blended learning about 5 or 6 years ago in response to the FELTAG report. And we've really seen the value of what kind of improving learners' digital skills can do for not only the institution, but the employability skills of learners. So we're really, we've probably done more CPD in this last year of the pandemic than we have in those 5 or 6 years of trying to embrace blended learning. I think that, like the other panelists have already said, it's an opportunity that we really need to seize and capture, and recognise that digital should be something that we all build on now. It's, it's for life, not just a pandemic. So we've got to move forward and take all of this really rich CPD that the staff have had to get involved with, and build on it further. I think that there's plenty more opportunities that can be had that can open up learning to a vast array of learners that may not have accessed learning in the traditional sense in, on-site teaching, etc. We need to see what we can do with better online learning for those that are maybe caregivers or learners that, adult learners that need to reskill in response to the pandemic. And we can use digital for so many different things. It's just, it's not one dimensional. And I think that if anything that we've seen over the past few months is that if we broaden our horizons and look at, thinking outside of the box and doing things differently, we'll see a whole different model for education within the next year or 2 years, which is actually really exciting. And that will all be underpinned by digital, because it has to be.
And for you, that new model has at its heart blended learning, that sense that you can learn outside of college, inside of college, outside school, inside school. That's what you mean by it at the core.
Absolutely. And we've embedded blended learning into our curriculums for 5 years. So our level 2 learners each do 1 hour a week of blended learning, and our level 3 learners do 2 hours a week on their timetable of blended learning. So that's been, a given, and that will continue, if not increase further, because what we've seen is that blended learning and the kind of independent learning aspect of it not only improves learners' digital skills, but also improves a number of other things, employability skills, time management, all sorts of different kind of, we talk about these 21st century skills that people are going to need to be able to adapt to different job roles and things. Well, blended learning does actually offer that development. So we're going to continue with that, and we're going to hopefully increase it as we move forward.
And any kind of final thoughts, and I'll go to our other two colleagues as well, but you've talked about the power of digital in terms of employability skills. People have talked about the need for this to be a springboard for the future. What about you, Amy? Any final thoughts that you'd like the audience to take away from this BettFest session?
I think that the main thing I would say is that it should be all about people, not technology. So people come first, and understanding that you have to empathise with those that are less confident with technology. Put yourself in the shoes of learners so you experience what they're experiencing, and then offer ongoing training and support, because it's not just, you do one training session and it's done. This is a continual professional development requirement that should be invested heavily in, and infrastructure should be invested heavily as well to support.
Good points. Bruce, what final thoughts would you like us to take away in terms of this big issue?
I think the most important thing I'd like to leave people with is the point around leadership and EdTech leadership. I don't inherently believe there's anything about the leadership of EdTech being different in any way to good leadership on any other project, whether that's in the edu sector or not. But I have experienced a real variety of schools doing that well, giving people enough time to do that, frankly taking it seriously, and just not bolting it onto that very busy person's kind of huge portfolio. So this crisis has seen a proliferation of devices, connectivity and cloud, and if we let that loose in the wild without good, clear leadership and with people with enough time to do it, then we'll miss this opportunity, I think.
Good points. Sarah, final points of the session, in fact.
So I think you've just got to motivate your staff, like Amy said, be aware of kind of the person behind that, and remove the unnecessary pressures from workload, and make it kind of your clear priority so that everybody knows what you're trying to achieve, and the most important, why you're trying to achieve it.
The why.
The why.
Absolutely vital. I don't think I've heard such wisdom at such speed ever at Bett. So thank you so much. And it's back to the BettFest studio. What a great session. Thanks, folks.
Thank you, Ty.
Thank you.